Hi friends, thank you so much for connecting with me. Hope that you've had a good week. So you can tell by the title graphic on the video and the music that we are into Advent. This is the beginning of the Christmas season. And during our Advent series, we're going to look at the themes of Advent, the traditional themes of hope and joy and hope, peace, joy, and love. And we're going to look at Christmas carols, some traditional Christmas carols that tie into those themes and what we can learn about those things. Okay, so that's kind of why it's called Yuletide carols. So before we talk about our theme today of hope and the Christmas carol of O Come, Emmanuel, I want to just say something to kind of set, I just want to say something. So in the past, I've talked about how we have been created in the image of God, right? And when we're living a beautiful Jesus life, then we live with, in the words of Galatians 5, we live with love and joy and peace and goodness and all those beautiful fruit of the Spirit. Or in Dr. Schwartz's language, when we're living the way that God created us, then we live with a sense of calmness and compassion and connection with other people. We live with courage and creativity. We live with all of these beautiful things when we're living the way that God created us to live. But that teaching, or that idea, if taken to extremes, would lead one to believe that fantastic, if I follow Jesus, I'm going to live a beautiful life. I'm not going to have any more problems. I'm going to just be full of love and courage and creativity and joy and all of these beautiful things. But the truth is, the reality is that that's not life, right? We've been created in God's image to live a beautiful life, but life is full of struggles. Life is full of setbacks and sorrow and all kinds of failures, all kinds of different things, right? And the truth is that the way to discover God is not in an easy, beautiful life, as we might define it. The way to discover God is not in an easy life. The way to discover God is found in sorrow. God is found in heartbreak and setbacks. And in fact, in the words of Father Rohr, the way down is the way up. The way down to sorrow, the way down through failure, the way down through disappointment is the way up to Jesus. So we're going to come back and talk about that in a second, but let me come back to our theme and our theme song for the day. Okay, so our theme this week is of hope, and so I've chosen, I think, the Christmas carol that best describes hope is in this Christmas carol, O Come, Emmanuel. And if you're with us on Sunday at this point in our discussion, I'm going to pause and I'm going to play a video, but for copyright reasons, I'm not going to play a video on the YouTube thing, right? Because then I'll get into trouble. So here are the words to O Come, Emmanuel, and I'll save you me trying to sing it. O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel, that mourns in lonely exile here, until the Son of God appear. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel, shall come to thee, O Israel. And then the second verse goes on to say, O come, thou rod of Jesse, free thine own from Satan's tyranny. From depths of hell thy people save, and give them victory over the grave. So this song is a beautiful song, but it's not a very popular song, right? And if you know the song, which probably you do, then you could hear, as I was reading it, you could hear the song kind of in your mind. You could hear the minor key that the song is played in and written in. And that minor key is quite intentional because minor keys are subdued and almost depressing, right? You could hear the minor key. And the language of the song is not like, the songs that we like to sing, joy to the world, hark the herald angels sing, like we love those uplifting Christmas songs, but this Christmas song, it kind of stands apart from the others because it's kind of depressing, even the words, like, talking about, O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel that mourns in lonely exile here. Or in that second verse, talking about Satan's tyranny, from depths of hell, thy people, So the words are like, wow, like that kind of, it goes against our modern North American idea of what Christmas is. And it goes against our modern North American idea of like onward and upward, from success to success, and you're going to be a success, and you're going to live, a beautiful life that has no challenges, no failures. You're going to like that. That's what we seek. And so here's the question for the day: how does the theme of hope, which is the theme for this first week of Advent, how does the theme of hope tie in to this song? Or in other words, how does this song speak to this theme of hope? And let me just share a quick thought, and then I'll share what I really want to say. A quick thought is that the theme of hope, that this is a beautiful song that speaks of hope, because in order to appreciate the birth of the Messiah, we have to embrace the pain of Israel's captivity and Israel's failure, right? We have to feel the pain of failure to truly appreciate the joy of the Messiah. Much the same way on Good Friday, I often say that we have to feel the pain of Good Friday, the death of Jesus, and the utter destruction, the utter dismay that the disciples must have felt. We have to feel the pain of Good Friday in order to understand the joy of Easter Sunday morning, right? And we see this in so many different areas of life. In order to truly understand the joy, we have to feel the pain. And it's the same with this song. The song talks about the pain of captivity, but rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. It's the pain of captivity and the joy of the Messiah. Okay, that's my short thought. But here's what I really want to say today. The question is, how does this song, O come, Emmanuel, talking about, the pain of captivity, how does this song speak to the issue of hope? And I come back to what I said at the beginning, that God is found in the suffering. How does suffering lead to hope? It gives us hope because that's where we find God. And again, like I said at the beginning, the way down is the way up. The way down through suffering, through failure, through different kinds of sorrow, the way down through sorrow is the way up to Jesus. Let me illustrate it with, or just explain my thoughts with three different things. Okay, first of all, it's often through failure or disappointment that we discover a new path. It's often through failure and disappointment that we discover a new path in life. So most of us are quite happy with our lives, right? We've chosen the path that we're on. We've curated the path that we're on. We've trimmed the bushes. We've cleaned up. We like the path that we're on, right? But what if God has a different path for us? What if God has something different for us? And you know the old saying, if you always do what you've always done, you always get what you always got. Do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got. And that's very true for our path of life, right? We just keep on doing what we've been doing, and we like our path, and we're going to just get the same results. But what if God has something new for us, that he's trying to nudge us off of the path, right? And often we're nudged off of the path, or sometimes kicked off the path by failure, by sorrow. Let me just illustrate really quickly. If you've been around for a while, you probably maybe remember me telling the story of leaving our previous church. We were at a church in Scarborough, and the journey of leaving that church was a very painful one. That led to about 6 months, I think it would be 6 or 7 or so months of unemployment, right? And that was a very, very difficult time in my life personally. And God, we were on a lovely path. And now, if I told the full story, we knew that our time was coming to an end, at that church, but the timing of it was not what we would have chosen. But we were, kind of kicked off the path kind of thing. And God, being kicked off of that path or pushed off of that path, I would not have chosen. But God used those circumstances directly to lead us to Stouffville and to Heisey Hill that, eventually became Reunion. And so, friends, my point is that sometimes through the pain of sorrow and regret and disappointment, sometimes through that pain we discover a new path that God has for us. So that's my first thought. Sometimes the sorrow leads us to a new path. My second thought is that sometimes sorrow leads us to humility and to surrender. Do you know the song, Carrie Underwood's song, Jesus Take the Wheel? As this, I don't know the song very well, but I've heard the first little bit, a few years ago or whatever. And as I remember it, I could be wrong on this, but as I remember it, she tells a story, in the song. So she has her her babies in the back seat, and she's driving down the road, and everything is good. She's happy. She's doing well. She's got her babies in the back, driving down the road, and she hits some black ice. So, she hits some black ice, and all of a sudden the car is spinning out of control. And in that moment of being out of control, what does she do? Jesus, take the wheel. What are the rest of the words? Jesus, take the wheel, da 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 da. But whatever. That's my attempt at singing a Carrie Underwood song. My point is that, when she was in control, all was well, right? But then she hit a black ice. The car of her life, is spinning out of control. And then she says, Jesus, take the wheel. Friends, often through sorrow and disappointment and failure, maybe our own failure or maybe the failure of other people, often in those times of sorrow, we discover that we are, actually going back to the language of our previous series, we discover that we're not strong enough and we need the help of Jesus. So Jesus, take the wheel. Friends, often we discover Jesus through sorrow because we discover our own limitations, and therefore we learn humility and we learn surrender. And we wouldn't choose to go through the sorrow, but we can learn from it, okay? So my first thought, sometimes we are forcefully kicked onto another path in life through pain and sorrow. Sometimes we learn through pain and sorrow that we need to humble ourselves and surrender. And then my final thought is that through pain and sorrow and failure, we learn what forgiveness is all about. We learn about God's forgiveness of us. We learn about our forgiveness of for ourselves. And sometimes we learn about how to forgive other people, right? We learn all about forgiveness through our own failure and the failure of other people. And we could talk for, a long time about this. But here's the bottom line, that when we fail, we discover God's love is unending. And when we fail, we discover that God's forgiveness is unending. And so therefore, if God can forgive us, then we can forgive ourselves. We can release ourselves of the burden of those past failures. And we can also learn to forgive others, who have hurt us. So all of this All of these things are things that we learn through failure, through sorrow, through disappointment, through setbacks. And that's why I say that the way to Jesus is not always, sometimes it's onward and upward, success to success. Sometimes life is good, often life is good. But the way to Jesus, truly the way to Jesus, is the way through sorrow and pain and setback and disappointment. The way down is the way up. The way down through sorrow is the way up to Jesus. And so now we take another look at our song, at our hymn, our Christmas carol, I mean. And so now the theme of hope is tied to this song, O come, Emmanuel, this song that talks about gloomy, dark night, captivity, Satan's tyranny, right? And now we understand the words of Paul when he says in Romans 5 that we rejoice in our suffering. Nobody likes suffering. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, oh, I hope I have a huge setback today. Oh, I hope I have a huge failure today. Nobody likes that. Nobody's going to choose it. But Paul says we can actually rejoice in our suffering. Why was he able to say that? Because our suffering teaches us some beautiful things about ourselves and about God. And so we say, O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel, ransom my broken, wounded life, and point me to Jesus. And therefore I can say, rejoice, oh, now I'm forgetting the words, but we can rejoice because of our failures and our sorrow. Okay? I need to go. I hope that maybe we can see you on Sunday. And if you can be with us, food will be served at 10:30, and our gathering, worship, and discussion will begin at 11 o'clock. Okay, God bless you, friends. Have a great day.